problem stopped. And the woman who eventually moved out of the house because she and her kids were real concerned, she came, but she would check the house every day anyhow. And she went after that. At the front door, there was a piece of burlap that had been shaped kind of like a 5-year-old might attempt to make a basket. And there was a couple like shiny objects or something inside it. It had been left as a gift, like a peace gift. And so this is why I'm not going to instantly buy that all Bigfoot are bad. And like I said, I would be pissed if somebody had flooded my house. And but we got lots of good photos, and we got hair samples, and you can see all that with the story. And if somebody's interested, again, just type in Valley of the Bigfoot in the search bar, and you should be able to get right to the story.
Oh, wow. So, changing a little bit from the Bigfoot, you mentioned that there are ETs that are on our Earth. Basically, they're supplying our government with information, and in return, we're basically turning our heads while they abduct humans for whatever they want?
That's what I've gotten that from different things, but this thing about the people being abducted in the forest and the children being taken, that's rather recent. It wasn't that long ago that we posted that story. I think it's, if you go to, let me open up something here and give you good directions.
Okay.
Hold on one second.
Well, I tell you, I would not want to meet
there's a section called Deep Throat Testimonies, and that's where we have people that have really good credentials, which I do get to see. I meet these people. I get confirmation that they're real, but for one reason or another, we can't identify them by name on the website. Yeah. And that's what the Deep Throat Testimonies are devoted to.
Wow. What's the worst you've heard about these ETs besides basically the government basically allowing them to, cannibalize humans?
Well, this is kind of an old story, so I'm not really telling you something that, hasn't been out there for some time. Let's see here if I can get it straight. It's been so long ago. The ETs were talking to one of our presidents, and there were a group of what I would call good ETs that said that they would be helpful to us and help protect us and the planet, but we had to give up our nuclear, weapons. Now, this president was President Eisenhower, who was also a general, and this was after, the wars had ended. So he wasn't about to agree to that. So he was then contacted by a different group of ETs, and that's when negotiations began to evolve. And he agreed to allowing humans to be abducted for study, and he thought this would only be done to a limited number of people, and in exchange we would get technical advanced knowledge from these ETs. Well, that was agreed upon for a while, but then the abductions and things really got out of control. What I'm telling you about the ones that are called the dominators, that even takes it much further, a much, worse stage. These people these ETs are described more like a more terrible form of reptilians.
Oh, that is scary. Hey, you remember back in the 60s, Twilight Zone did a series where a UFO landed and the aliens, acted, like they wanted to help man, and they gave, the scientists a big book, and they couldn't, it was in a language we didn't understand, so they tried breaking the language. And meanwhile, they kept saying, we want to help mankind, we want to do this and that. And all of a sudden, like, instead of going to the airport and seeing airplanes, you saw UFOs. So all these people were going on trips to this planet, right? Well, as this one scientist, he was selected to go to that planet, is getting on the spaceship. One of his assistants come running out, and she said, hey, don't get on that ship. We broke the code. To serve man is a cookbook. And that stuck in my mind because, you hear about abductions and, it maybe even back in the early 60s, people were realizing.
Somebody knew something, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Science fiction has always been giving us glimpses of the future.
Well, if somebody offers me a free ride on a spaceship, I'm not going to get on it.
Well, I think people, some people want to invite the UFOs in, and they want to see a UFO, and they want to, see an ET. And I think people need to be really careful. And if you do see a UFO or an ET coming your direction, you better really tune into your gut feeling, because if your gut feeling says run like hell, that's probably good advice, because all ETs are not good, all ETs are not bad. They're just like human beings. We have both kinds, and we better be discerning.
Well, I will say this, okay? We look at anything be less humans, right, as eatable. So I hate to say it, if you got a alien, right, from a different race that is 100,000 years or 10,000 years or 5,000 years ahead of us, they could look at us as nothing more than how
cattle.
As cattle. Seriously.
In fact, this man that with the high security clearance, he said that those particular types of ETs refer to the Earth as the farm.
Oh, yeah, well, yeah. Because it's not just even the 14,000 people that gone missing in the, in the park system. You look at all the people who've gone missing worldwide. I mean, they go on a trip and they're gone. They go, they walk down the street to go to the store, never found again. Now, some of them could be from, people killing people and things like that. But then again, you never know. I mean, there's so many people have totally disappeared that it's virtually to the point where they can't even account for it.
And those that live in other countries, let's say different parts of Africa and South America, where, there would be nobody who would ever report somebody missing like that, we'd never hear about it. So that's probably really good pickings.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. And, yeah, you're right. Like in the Amazon and places like that. I mean, it just, I don't know. I don't want to scare people, but. Well,
it's like I said, we need to trust our gut feelings more, because I've talked to many people who've had good experiences. I've had so many stories I can't keep all the details straight to be able to share them with you. But one man and his buddy went down to one of the ruins in Central America. And after the tour was over, they didn't leave with everybody else. They hid out. So they spent the night in the ruins where you weren't supposed to stay. By doing that, they saw some ETs that look human that, were there by the pyramids in the middle of the night. And if they hadn't hid out like they did, they never would have known that. But they said they looked very human. So, and he said they even walked by him and kind of nodded and kept on going.
Oh,
so,
I wonder what they were doing.
I don't know. I do not know. I don't, and he didn't know either. So, but, that was not a bad experience. It was a unique experience, but it wasn't bad.
Well, it could have turned out bad if they would have been found. I mean, really. I mean, yeah. I put it this way. I had Peter Davenport on the show, and I'm sure you know who he is.
Right. He records. Yes, I know who he is.
Yeah, a fun guest. And, I also had a kind of a UFO or something back in the mid-'70s. I was coming back from New Bern, North Carolina. I worked for a place called Clark Boat Company, and I decided to come back home, and I was going through New Mexico, and I was like speeding, because there was no speed limit, so I was probably doing 90 to 100 miles an hour through the desert, and all of a sudden, the whole area in front of me and the side of me, and inside the car, all lit up, and my wife was panicking. I figured, okay, must be a helicopter, because maybe the way I'm driving, so I pull off the side of the road, and, I got out, and it was a blinding light, but I didn't hear no helicopter. I didn't hear anything. I mean, I heard nothing. And then instantly, it was gone. And,
Mm-hmm.
Peter told me he's had thousands of reports of stuff like that happening that way. So it tells me, there is things out there. Maybe that was a government thing. I have no idea. But it was something I could...
It's getting harder to tell them apart because the government's gotten rather good at creating, UFOs.
Well, I don't know if the government's ever going to admit there's UFOs or not, but I mean, it's strange, Mary, that in the last year they've come out like with the fighter pilots in the Navy encountering a UFO and releasing some of that information and some of the video. It makes you wonder, like maybe they're slowly trying to prepare us that something is out there. And then you have the Secretary of the Air Force here a few months ago said, hey, our next war will not be on Earth. It'll be in space. And you can take it two ways, okay? Maybe we develop certain type of missiles and spacecraft and we fight against another country out in space, or maybe we're going to fight against aliens. I have no idea.
Yep. I guess if we knew all the answers, we would be bored to death, right?
I think so. That's why I think, the Bigfoots out there actually have it easy, I mean, from the standpoint, they have to go, and look for food all the time and stuff like that. But boy, they sure don't have the pressures that me and you have.
Because we know too much.
Yeah, sometimes I wish I didn't know what I know. Doing this type of show, I get guests on all the time, and then sometimes I'm done with the show, right? I go to bed and I can't sleep.
Well, if it's any comfort to you, I'm a short-term pessimist and a long-term optimist. I do not think the world is going to end. I do think that we will. We've been going through an awful lot for a bunch of years. I don't think it's going to let up anytime real soon. But if we pay attention, we'll get through it. But most people ignore things. Like, I'm sorry, the people that are continuing to build right on the beaches, or people who develop an entire residential community right on the edge of the most active volcano in the world, where is the common sense?
Well, especially when they start crying and saying my house was absorbed by, the lava. There was a lady in Hawaii the other day on the news crying that they just lost everything they had. Well, why would you have a house there? Seriously.
I know. See, that's not making sense. We have to be sensible. It's pretty hard to be protected if we don't operate any common sense. And there's certain places we just shouldn't be living.
Well, you know what? I'm at my age. I'm 66 years old, so I'm not young anymore. So if I wanted to go to and live in Florida, I'm not going to worry about it being underwater. But, if I was 21 years old and moved to Florida and bought some property in certain parts of Florida, I'd be worried about in 20 years from now if I had to, learn how to swim.
Right. Absolutely. So everybody just needs to have more sense about what they do.
Yeah. Now, I'm kind of concerned about the Earth, the wobble of the Earth, what's going on with that. I'm kind of worried about polar shifts, magnetic reversal. I'm just wondering what that will do to, I think our electrical system in this country and probably Canada and probably 3/4 of the world, would probably be gone. Probably.
And I have a couple reactions to it. One, we're long overdue for a polar shift. It's been 780,000 years since we've had one. And that's a very long time to not have one. And but it may not be as awful as we think because, there's this gradual rotation that we're seeing. They've had to change the directional signs on airports because it's changed enough that the pilots need different directional signs. And that began to happen a number of years ago.
Oh, yeah. If they went by what they had 10 years ago, they wouldn't even be in the same airport to land. They'd be in probably another state.
Right. So it's changing, and maybe it will just continue to change at a slow, steady course.
Yeah, but the thing is, when you read about it, though, I mean, if it went to all of a sudden slow and then all of a sudden it shifted, I mean, one scientist will say, oh, it'll cause like all these major winds that'll, destroy and virtually wipe everybody off of Earth. And you hear all this other stuff.